cheer.
Princess Margaret had a low royal profile for nearly 20 years. At 66, her life provides few headlines. But recently, she stepped back into the limelight with a stinging rebuke to the Duchess of York. In a letter, she told her, "Not once have you hung your head in embarrassment. Clearly you have never considered the damage you are causing us all. How dare you discredit us like this?" But Margaret had herself already tarnished the royal image. When she returned from Moustique in 1976, she was in disgrace because she'd been exposed by the press with a lover 17 years her junior. It was she who was the first member of the House of Windsor to be divorced. She who was the first to be publicly criticised. Margaret has at times wanted to be the most royal of the royals, at others a rebel. Her life has been spent trying to resolve these contradictions. In August 1930, the Home Secretary hurried to Glasgow Castle in Scotland on urgent state business. It was his duty to attend any royal birth, and the King Emperor George V was expecting his second grandchild, the first had been a girl, Elizabeth. But, with no other royal babies on the horizon, there were high hopes that this new baby might be a future king.
Announced from Glasgow Castle that a daughter has been born to their Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of York, the Princess Margaret Rose.
The new baby was only a girl. The Home Secretary took away with him the depressing news. There was still no new prince.
With Princess Elizabeth, a toddler of 4, Margaret was born into disappointment. The nation had prayed for a prince. Her sister became heiress presumptive and Princess Margaret next in succession.
Just as the country was downcast by her birth, disappointment has been the theme of Margaret's life. 50 years later, she herself appeared disappointed when she was interviewed on BBC Radio's Desert Island Discs. Roy Plumley invited her to talk about her talents, but she seemed to prefer to dwell on her shortcomings.
You have a gift for mimicry, you're a good musician, you love dancing. In other circumstances, you be good at performing.
No, I don't think so. I wasn't any good at any of them. I mean, you're kind enough to say that I'm a good mimic, but I can't actually mimic people very well. There are other members of my family who are better at that. I'm not a very good musician. I can strum on the piano a little bit for other people to sing to.
I think there are many things that Prince Margaret would have liked to have done in her life that she hasn't been able to do because of her position. And I think, without doubt, she has actually devoted her life to doing her duty in the way that she does for the Queen and for this country.
At the age of 22, Margaret stood by while her sister was crowned and became the most prominent woman in the world. She has had to live her whole life in the shadow of the Queen. "I guess I'll be second best to my grave," she once told a friend.
She was more glamorous than the Queen. I think she was probably more intelligent than the Queen, certainly superficially. I mean, she was very amusing. She was talented. She played the piano beautifully. She sang. She was always a big success at any sort of social event. So I think she found it difficult being number 2.
I think it must be very difficult being the only sister of the Queen, I think it would have been easier if there had been other sisters, because just being the only one, it was really only playing state fiddle.
There is one place where Margaret can throw off her second sister status, her own desert island, Mustique in the Caribbean. Here she can reign supreme. Rarely photographed, the island is renowned as the hideaway of the rich and famous, who take care to preserve their privacy.
It's her sanctuary. It was her little haven. She liked to be amused. She liked to be busy. It was beaches, it was picnics, luncheons, and then of course dinners. And our dinners would extend to little parties. We would try to organize some kind of music for her, which she liked. And she played the piano for us. She joined in trying to get a little action going.
There's very little to do on Mustique except swim, and she would go swimming a couple of times a day, and people and anybody with her on holiday had to swim with her like a flotilla following a whale, the sort of guide fish, and the other pilot fish would swim behind and alongside, and conversations would ensue.
She would ring me up and she would say she couldn't get me lobster. I'd look at her going, never mind, ma'am, I'll get you some lobster and I'll send it up to you this afternoon. And I would. And it would always be received as a gift, although I'd been quite pleased if she paid for it.
But even when surrounded by her court, Margaret is not fully at ease.
She always smoked. She was a chain smoker from the moment I first met her. She always had a drink in her hand. She sipped it. She didn't guzzle. She didn't get drunk as such, but she was quite well oiled, shall we say. And I think she needed it to, she needed it. She was very quick-witted. She could defend herself, but she still had, in some mysterious way, I can't explain it, a lack of self-confidence.
Early on in her life, it must have been clear to Margaret that she could never be her sister's equal.
Do you remember the fun of walking along the clubs or no balustrades? Princess Elizabeth helps her small sister before running across the other track. At that she reaches the top first. 2 years makes a lot of difference at that age.
Margaret has always been one step behind her older sister. When their uncle abdicated in 1936, Elizabeth, overnight, became the heir apparent. While she was groomed to be queen, Margaret was encouraged to play the frivolous younger sister.
Princess Elizabeth always came across as very steady, very stable, not terrifically curious about the world, very reliable, somebody who, in some ways was rather dull even, perhaps like priggish. Whereas Princess Margaret was much more sort of fay and imaginative and more musical, more artistic, lived more in a kind of fantasy world. So there was that kind of difference of emphasis, which partly, of course, reflected what was expected of them.
Apart from doing good works and being a sort of shadow of, I don't know what aspirations they could possibly have had. I don't think it occurred to them in those days that, I mean, if you were a member of the royal family, particularly if you were the sister of the Queen, you just were, you just lived a nice life.
The two princesses were isolated in Buckingham Palace. They didn't go to school, and other children rarely came to play. Margaret, 4 years younger, had only Elizabeth to compare herself with. Their governess gave them a rudimentary education, but Elizabeth was singled out for every lesson in history.
And Deb Barron picked up on the grass there. Looking picture of this. Have you ever seen them alone together before? The Queen and Princess Margaret look on.
I think they were very proud of Elizabeth and very ambitious for her and longing for her to be a good heir to the throne. And so Margaret got rather overlooked. I think Margaret was left very much to, muck out the stables, have a good time, play, catch me as you can with the young officers, sort of generally rather enjoy herself.
The king indulged Margaret. He knew she was often ignored and tried to make amends by spoiling her. Her governess noticed how Margaret learned to get attention.
Margaret was always willful and headstrong. Deliberate, with the rest of us laughed at her antics, and indeed it was impossible not to. I think they often made her uneasy and filled her with foreboding. On more than one occasion, the official camera has caught her giving Margaret a nudge and a sisterly look that has said plainer than any words, "Margaret, please behave."
As Margaret grew up, her actions were to justify her sister's forebodings. Early in Elizabeth's reign, Margaret's behaviour threatened to damage the monarchy when she fell in love with her father's equerry, a dashing war hero.
Wartime fighter ace, talented amateur jockey, a familiar figure of continental turf. Group Captain Peter Woolridge Townsend, CBO, DSO, DFC and Bar, mentioned in dispatches former equerry to Her Majesty. But he is also the man the world has been talking about more and more over the past 2 years.
Margaret's affair with Peter Townsend has become a legend. Townsend, a divorcee with 2 children, was judged unfit by the establishment to marry a princess. Margaret has been cast as the innocent victim of a tragic love. But there are those who doubt whether Margaret was ever truly in love.
A teenager is often infatuated with an older man and thinks it's in love, but they are also very often under the impression that love is not what it really is, and they're in love with love. He was being nice to her, naturally, because she was the king's daughter. He had been hoping that they could be very friendly without going too far.
I managed to track down Townsend's cleaning lady in the early 60s and spent a long time interviewing her and got a great deal of material. Of course, she witnessed many of these meetings when Margaret would come on horseback to the house and say to Townsend, "You're coming out with me. I want to ride with you. You're coming out now." She was very arrogant, even at the age of 15 and 16. She knew what she wanted. No way was she not going to get it, and she wanted Townsend.
At first, her family turned a blind eye to Margaret's romance. But when she demanded to marry her hero, they had to take her seriously. Her choice of a divorced commoner was welcomed by the Queen.
Peter Townsend had this kind of mark of king on him, which was, albeit the innocent party. He had a previous marriage and had children by that previous marriage. And of course, it's only a few years since the searing trauma of the abdication crisis in 1936. That was in everybody's mind. Attitudes, of course, had not changed dramatically since then.
Although Queen and Cabinet could not stop Margaret from marrying, they accused her of jeopardising the good reputation of the monarchy. A romantic dilemma was shared by the nation.
Princess Margaret fell in line for the throne of Britain, now 25 and legally in control of her own destiny. Reporters and cameramen crowd round Group Captain Townsend's car as he drives away, but still he can say nothing. Outside Aaron's house, where Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother are in residence, more cameras, more crowds.
The popular press covered every new development, urging Margaret to stand her ground. As the weeks passed, the country waited to hear whether she would defy the establishment or whether she would bow to their demands. Her answer interrupted programmes on the 31st of October, 1955.
This is BBC. following personal message was issued from Terence House by Princess Margaret about half an hour ago. I have decided not to marry Group Captain Peter Townsend. I have been aware that, subject to my renouncing my right to succession, it might have been possible for me to contract a civil marriage. But, mindful of the Church's teaching that Christian marriage is indissoluble, and conscious of my duty to the Commonwealth, I have resolved to put these considerations...
This famous announcement enshrined Margaret's image as the tragic princess, forced to sacrifice love for duty. But in reality, she'd been given a choice. Margaret could have married Townsend, but only if she'd given up her title of Royal Highness and the civil list income that went with it. The question remains whether she gave up her love for royal duty or for royal privilege.
Although people have cast this couple as Romeo and Juliet tragic romance, that's not true at all. There's no question that her love was strong enough. A woman truly in love would have forsaken all that to be with the man she wanted to be with. Margaret couldn't walk away from that. She was far more in love with her lifestyle than she ever was with Peter Townsend.
I noticed the other day, for instance, that in 1995, Princess Margaret was paid £219,000, which was reimbursed by the Queen to the Treasury. She lives and lived at Kensington Palace, where she has a flat with 21 rooms. She has 7 servants. We couldn't afford one.
The court turned its back on the loyal query. Immediately after the affair, Townsend was sent abroad, never to live in England again.
Of course, if they had married, there was a good chance there would have been a disaster, because they were totally different in character. She was fun-loving, like nightclubs, dancing, going on trips to the West Indies, and Peter was more inclined to the quiet life. He was an extremely gentle, courteous man, and she was so imbued with herself. And I've sometimes wondered if she was in fact ever capable of real love.
She's never done anything outrageous or vicious or anything. In fact, she's never done anything, really. I mean, if she'd stood up over Townsend, if she could have done, if she'd realised that she had a lot of support, you know, I suppose it's too much to ask of anybody like that.
Margaret had not been able to face life outside the royal fold. She had decided that being royal was safer than being in love.
With BT, apparently, ISDN is cheaper than ever. But what on earth is ISDN?
ISDN is a very fast way of transmitting information.
It's a digital line that's used, a non-regular phone line.
We can call up a publication on screen. You press these keys and zip, the printer is getting the publication almost at once.
Why don't you get deterioration quality then on transmission?
Because it transmits the file identically from one end to the other, and the quality is exactly the same as the original.
We used to courier publication to a printer. Very often a byte will get stuck in traffic. Nowadays, with ISDN, it takes minutes, and it's the cost of a phone call. Now, when I say to a client, we've sent it, we know that it's there.
You could transmit it in 10 minutes.
Certainly.
Find out how BT's ISDN service can improve the efficiency of your business. Call BT Business Connections on free phone 0800 800 800.
To find out how you can invest in a Virgin Direct app, call us now on 0345 959595.
Finished double action tablets, 2 layers for superior cleaning, and now a new big value pack.
Steady. Marks, 3 laps ahead.
You've got to get to a good start, Henry. For your finances. It pays to get a good team like those Equitable Life chaps. They see to it that you get more pounds working for you from day one. Not planning properly for the future can really hit you where it hurts.
And we don't want to give ourselves over to that, do we, Henry?
With more pounds working for you from day one, it's an equitable life, Henry.
Lièvre is an established French company. We manufacture furnishing fabrics of the highest quality. Lièvre and DHL work hand in hand. They carry our image worldwide. I never say no to my clients. Lièvre never says no. DHL never says no to me.
DHL, we keep your promises.
Now I can breathe, I can see, I can touch, I can feel. You give me all the love I ever miss. I never felt like this. I'm alive.
The micro. Ask before you borrow it.
Princess Margaret comes to the mansion house for a welcome home reception after her Caribbean tour.
Margaret had chosen the life of a royal, the familiar round of public duties, from opening hospital wards to deputising for the Queen on foreign trips.
An example of how well travelled I'm becoming is that when people now talk to me of Scarborough, my mind turns less naturally to the North Riding than to Tobago.
While she's relished the privileges of her life, she's been reluctant to accept its restrictions. Margaret has both clung to her position and wanted to escape royal conventions.
I think she was very conscious of being a royal princess, which she was, and not an ordinary person, but wanted to have the excitement of ordinary life as well. So she wanted to have her cake and eat it, really. And most of the time in those early days she did.
Her social life during the 1950s was a catalogue of minor rebellions. Margaret was determined to flout convention. She lit up in public. Her long cigarette holder became her trademark. She stayed out late. She danced to jazz clubs.
She had a set of people who had to be there. She would demand it, and they were there, mainly men, mainly from the peerage. And she would keep them up until 3 and 4 in the morning. They couldn't leave until she decided she wanted to go. So these poor chaps, some of them did actually do some work, even though they were peerage, had to stay on there, their eyes drooping, until 3 or 4 in the morning.
Margaret's rebellious behaviour had strict limits. Her social circle was safely establishment. 2 future dukes, several earls, and various viscounts. There was constant speculation about which one she would marry, but they seemed not to want such a demanding royal spouse, and were quick to find other brides. At the age of 29, Margaret told friends she felt left on the shelf. Her chance for marriage and greater rebellion came when she met Tony Armstrong-Jones. Tony was no aristocrat. He worked for a living as a society photographer.
And Tony showed her another side of life. For example, he loved his passionate motorcyclist with all the leathers and the black gear. And Margaret loved to get on the back of the pillion. And there's an exhilarating experience for her to be whisked around the age of 29, unrecognised by anybody.
By Margaret's standards, Tony's lifestyle was daring. His unconventional friends included models, actresses, and artists. He even had a bohemian hideaway in a run-down part of South London.
Thought she'd never crossed the river before. That's a huge journey for her.
Tony's studio proved the perfect place to indulge her fantasy of informal life. They had nicknames for each other. She called him Tone. He was allowed to call her Pet.
They cooked simple meals together, spaghetti and things. And it was so different from a life in Karen's house where she lived with her mother, with footmen and servants around. There were no servants. Went to Rotherhithe, and she adored it.
In 1959, Margaret decided that she would marry Tony Armstrong-Jones. Her family's reservations about his lifestyle and his social status only fueled her determination.
it wasn't what they'd expected, was it? Wasn't what anyone expected. She'd suddenly done something really daring and different and just like she is. One department.
I think they got on quite well. They sparred quite well together. And I think also that she was determined to the willful nature in her a little bit, that after Townsend, she wasn't going to marry the sort of person that the establishment perhaps would have liked her to marry. I think, in a way, it was a slight act of defiance. I mean, I don't suppose Tony Armstrong-Jones was originally welcomed into the royal family at all.
The honeymoon was a 6-week cruise on the Royal Yacht Britannia, attended by a crew of over 250. The trip cost the taxpayer the equivalent of £750,000 at current prices.
The Royal Yacht, at the moment a very magnificent honeymoon cruise yacht, brought Princess Margaret and her husband on a brief visit to Trinidad. Both looked thoroughly sun-bronzed, as indeed you'd expect anyone to be who was lucky enough to be enjoying a Caribbean cruise.
Back home, Tony was expected to settle into royal life and adopt Margaret's routine of public appearances. But unlike previous royal consorts, Tony was determined to keep his own career going. He told fellow photographer Ray Belisario of his mounting irritations.
He said, well, look, I find the whole business of this royal business utterly boring. These were his words. And he used many other descriptions. He said it was, he felt there was no real purpose in going along behind his wife, attending these occasions which were of themselves of no great importance. They were not made any more important by his wife's attendance, and for him to string along as well was quite futile, no doubt.
I think it's much easier if one royal marries another royal, because they have basically the same upbringing, the same sort of values, and also know the pressures that fall on somebody who's a member of the royal family.
Many people on their way to work spotted her luggage, an indication that a little later on the princess and her husband would be coming off the train, back home after the holiday in Scotland.
Born and bred royal, Margaret could not see the need to compromise her lifestyle. She did little to lessen Tony's frustrations, and his reactions to her became increasingly irritable.
Many times she would end up in tears 10 minutes before she was due to step into her car and go off to some royal engagement. An engagement which was probably fixed for the two of them. And he had suddenly shouted down the stairs, go to this silly bloody party on your own, or give the mayor my regards, or some facetious remark like that.
His friends in the end turned out to be not her kind of ants, and she reverted back to her old set, and they became two separate people. Margaret adored the bohemian style of life and paid lip service to it, but Margaret could be anything else than what she was, the last real princess.
The couple now had 2 children, David Viscount Lindley and Lady Sarah Armstrong-Jones. But as they grew up, their parents grew further apart. Rumours were rife in Fleet Street that both Tony and Margaret were having affairs. His name was most often associated with Lady Jackie Rufus Isaacs, but only the foreign press dared publish the stories.
In the years of your marriage, has this happened again and again, gossip starts about you?
Oh, well, in certain European countries, they seem to have nothing better to write about than very dreary, totally unfounded gossip.
At the same time, Margaret's name became linked with several men, including Robin Douglas Hume, a nephew of the former Prime Minister, and with the comedian Peter Sellers.
A private dinner for my father and her at Kensington Palace. This is described to me by my father. Anyway, they have a dinner. Dinner's very nice, and then everything, and all of a sudden, all of the help disappears. They're alone. The pregnant silence ensues. And he said to me, he said, well, it was obvious what was on the cards, as it were. And I said, I thought to myself, I could end up in a tower for this.
Sellers' humour attracted Margaret, who who agreed to take part in one of his home movies.
May I present, ladies and gentlemen, my impersonation in 11 seconds flat before your very eyes of Her Royal Highness, Princess Margaret!
Both volatile characters. I mean, it's well documented that Princess Margaret is volatile, giving more than a few people their fair share, or her share of grief. And my father was the same. He was very fickle in many ways. You know, I could come into the house and say hello to him in the wrong way, and that would ruin a day. You know, it's like, go away. And I think in the same way, that volatility, it worked as a chemistry between the two of them.
Margaret's unpredictable moods and what's called her acid drop look are well known to her friends. She excuses them as a defence mechanism, but she does not confine her rudeness to private occasions. Even at official functions, she's been known to show her impatience. At one charity event, she lost her temper with Tony as she was about to cut the ribbon.
It was a fairly simple ceremony, just taking the scissors out and cutting the tape, and poor Tony dropped his scissors or something like that, and Margaret just about went completely off her trolley and started screeching at him. My parliamentary colleague and the mayor, etc., were almost embarrassed about the whole incident. So she wasn't the best of ambassadors for the royal family, I'm afraid, at times.
She was invited to Italy, where you'd been arranged for a Vatican official to take on a tour. She totally ignored it, went off on her own friends, and left the poor chap standing for hours. Being explained to him later on, she just didn't feel like it.
I think Princess Margaret undertakes a large number of public engagements, and I think some cannot be as amusing as others. I think it would be fair to say she has a low threshold to boredom, and doesn't really suffer fools gladly.
Margaret's royal status allows her to rule unchecked over her circle of friends. She insists they call her ma'am and regularly invites herself to stay. Some of them have dubbed her the weekend guest from hell. Wherever she goes, a list is sent ahead, specifying her requirements, even down to the brands of whiskey and water she expects to be served.
One visit she made, the hostess felt she had to rewire the whole of Margaret's bedroom, so she had somewhere to plug in her haircut. It's got to be Margaret's way, and the food has got to be the food Margaret wants. It's got to be so constant, and people have to stay up at night if she wants to stay up, which she normally does. Their whole lives turn topsy-turvy when she stays.
Well, I think anything with Princess Margaret can be rocky or can be wonderful. Quite long. Doesn't leave very early.
You couldn't forget that she was a royal princess, and there was a line you never quite knew where it was, beyond which you couldn't get.
It's quite frightening, actually, when you think you've gone over mark, because there's a sort of look of disapproval, and sometimes one's left wondering afterwards what exactly you did to produce that look.
And there's a lovely story of Keith Waterhouse being at a party with Margaret, and she had an inch of ash on the end of her cigarette. Poor Keith reached across for an ashtray, and as his hand passed, she flicked the ash of the cigarette into his hand. He said, thank goodness she wasn't going to stop it out.
She's never badly rude, she's really rude. You know, it's a sort of fait accompli. One sort of feels it's almost a game with her because she loves getting it right, being rude. She sort of does it so perfectly, it's kind of like a sort of game set and match development.
Margaret has learned that being royal allows her to act as she pleases. In the 1970s, her bad behaviour was to push the House of Windsor into a groundbreaking public scandal.
So, what do you think of your new Shogun, Bob?
Very pleased. Very pleased. Seen this adjustable suspension? You go over a bump in the road, hardly feel a thing. And I can go straight from 2 to 4-wheel drive.
That's invaluable when the road gets slippery. Body's made galvanised steel, isn't it?
Should keep the demon rust at bay. Brakes good. Tandem brake system, multi-mode ABS.
You never know when that might come in handy.
Tell you what else I like the Shogun. The elevated driving position. Gives you better visibility all round.
There may be trouble ahead, but while there's moonlight and music and love and romance, let's face the music and dance.
Because life's a funny old game, and your career may not last as long as you think, Allied Dunbar's financial plans adapt to help you face the unexpected.
Let's face the music and dance.
Are you alright? You look like death.
You should have seen the other bloke. Allied Dunbar, for the life you don't yet know.
You British have started another revolution in my country. You bring us the same technology that you have. So these now get delivered to Europe a week faster than ever before. Long live the revolution.
I got travel insurance from the post office back home. I got it while I was picking up my travel checks, so I'm fully covered.
This overnight service from the UK really knocks me out.
Millie, the stripes.
Clients just change their mind.
It's purple!
Overnight.
The post office, winning people over all over the world.
The man's enjoying his retirement then.
Yes.
It's broken his heart not having a son take over the Kenko Coffee Company. Should we go have some coffee?
Thank you.
Taste that and tell me that you can make your instant as good as my ground coffee.
I already have.
I'm drinking it, aren't I?
Yes. Good, isn't it?
Kenko, the taste of ground coffee in an instant.
I don't know how to break this to you, Mum, but one of your eggs is off with the bacon.
Bacon. Buy one, get one free.
By the early 1970s, Margaret's marriage was over, but the Queen would not allow her sister to taint the family with divorce. The couple kept up appearances as Margaret sank deeper into depression. But help was on its way, in the shape of a young man with aspirations to be a pop star. He'd make his debut on French television with Petula Clark.
Maintenant, on a un jeune garçon dans le studio qui s'appelle Roddy Llewellyn. C'est la première fois qu'il chante en public et il a choisi Paris pour la première fois à la télévision. Il va chanter en français et il connaît bien la princesse Margaret. Il s'appelle Roddy Llewellyn.
Venez donc chez moi.
Roddy, 17 years her junior, had been provided as a companion for Margaret during a weekend stay with her friend Colin Tennant.
I introduced Rod to somebody called Violet Wyndham. Violet fell in love with Roddy. She was the most wonderful boy ever. And she was always having him to dinner and everything. And one day Colin apparently rang and said, I need a person for the weekend to entertain Prince Margaret. So-and-so can't come. And Violet said, I got the perfect person, dear, Roddy Llewellyn. And that was it. And it really, and she was right, it worked.
J'attendrai chez moi pour te visiter.
Roddy, who had been living for a year with Nicky Haslam, the designer in Chelsea, in a studio apartment, they'd been living together for a year. He was summoned up to Edinburgh, and in walked Roddy. She absolutely loved him from word one.
Puisque tu m'invites
I think they fell in love absolutely the minute they clapped eyes on each other. I think it was a coup de foudre, instant, and very right to fur.
She went off and bought him a swing costume within an hour of meeting him. I must get you a costume. And on she trotted to choose his swing costume. And of course, when they got to Glen, Scottish Castle, Roy was put in a sort of turret above her bedroom. Very handy, and the whole thing started there and then, that weekend. Their love affair started.
Well, I'm sure Prince Margaret sat down piano and started playing, because Roddy loves singing. Long before he started making records, he used to sing. And I think they bawled away no end. Two songbirds, let alone lovebirds.
Es-tu bien chez moi? Oui. Restons-y.
Over the next 3 years, Margaret's romance with Rod blossomed in the privacy of her Moustique hideaway. It was the perfect place for Margaret to show off her young partner.
The first time I met Roddy, we were having a little thing at the Cotton House, a little party, and I had just got on my boat and come ashore, and Princess Margaret had always, I had noticed, given me a little envious glance when I appeared with my beautiful young captains, one of my big Norwegians or Swedes or something, younger than me, of course. And so on this occasion, she rushed up to me and said, "Oh, Biddy, I have someone I'm dying for you to meet." And she dragged me over to the bar. She took me, pulled me over to the bar, and introduced me to this rather insignificant young man. But I realized right away, not having been told anything, that she brought him and that he was very important to her.
But Moustique was also the scene of her undoing. Rumours of the romance had reached Fleet Street. A News of the World photographer smuggled himself onto the island and caught Margaret and her lover together on camera. The result was a front-page story, exposing a royal extramarital affair for the first time.
Suddenly it was there, whap, a major story in the paper. Roddy saw this on the island, and coming back to England, in a state of euphoria and slightly drunk, marched up and down the airplane gangway, waving the newspaper and saying, "This is me, this is me."
Is your relationship with Princess Margaret finished, or is it
Well,
intact?
I never talk about my private life to comparative strangers, only to my best friends. I do understand.
You're not engaged, so who's your girlfriend?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm really not prepared to talk about my private life. I don't want to sound the least bit rude, but I'd rather leave it that way. Do mind.
To the royal family's dismay, Roddy Llewellyn proved to be rich fodder for the press. Reporters discovered that he'd been living on a hippie commune during his relationship with Margaret. It was run by young aristocrat Sarah Ponsonby.
Oh yes, my cousin Sarah Ponsonby. Of course he did. Surrendal. I don't know what he did there, I won't. Hippie heaven, wasn't it? Surrendal was I should imagine, a little hippie heaven. That was a real drop in, drop out, it was called.
Margaret was a frequent visitor to the commune, but tried to keep her presence secret. When the news leaked out, local farmer John Rawlins was surprised to read in the press of her connection with this unconventional household.
Having lived in the farm and in such a lonely spot and being on your own and seeing nothing like that happen, just a surprise, yes. It put the farm back on the map. They've got surrender straight in front of you, lovely barn, nice house. I ain't been asked before now yet. I had cups of coffee. When I came to this yard once, I was the only one with clothes on. Yeah. Well, I was the one obliged.
Roddy was quick to capitalise on his celebrity status. He used his royal connection to launch his singing career. But the more publicity he got, the more the Queen spared. Margaret's behaviour had provoked press and Parliament into questioning the value of the monarchy itself.
it's very, very clear that the palace held its hand up in horror at the whole thing. The Queen was having to go cap in hand to Parliament to ask for more money because inflation had so eroded its solicitors since the beginning of the reign. And this was happening just at the time of the royal embarrassment over Roderick Llewellyn, who was very much over Princess Margaret. So you've got questions in the House about how many engagements she had, how many public engagements she had in relation to how much she was being paid. And that kind of fed into the tabloid intrusion and attack on her because of the relationship. And she, to some extent, I think, took a slightly defiant view of it all.
Margaret's affair with Roddy dealt the final blow to her marriage. The House of Windsor had fought to maintain its image as the model family. There had never been a divorce in its ranks, but now the Queen had to give in. She allowed Margaret and Tony to separate. The unthinkable had happened. A royal marriage breakup.
Well, I think that Princess Margaret has been a PR disaster, not just for herself, but for the royal family. And I think that probably in retrospect, the Queen herself would have to admit that.
The debate which Margaret's behaviour provoked about the cost of the royal family has continued to this day. In 1993, the Queen finally bowed to public pressure and took Margaret and other second-rank royals off the civil list. Margaret still gets her allowance of £290,000 a year. The palace maintains that as she is now paid by the Queen, Margaret is no longer a cost to the taxpayer. But Margaret's money comes from an estate, the Duchy of Lancaster, whose ownership is disputed.
Royalists generally like to put forward the idea that now the Queen is digging into her own pocket to pay for various relatives who are seen as not really essential to the monarchy, and all that kind of problem has been sorted out. Whereas really the Duchy of Lancaster belonged to the state. Historically it always was, and in the last century, somehow or another, by various secret deals, the monarchy has managed to get that money and put it in its private pocket.
On top of her allowance, there are other perks which go with Margaret's royal position.
There are various items which are far less visible. Like the most important one is Kensington Palace, which is a very fine home in central London, and there's also clothing allowance for official visits, and even a home for her private secretary, 15th Earl Napier, who also has 2 other homes.
She decided that it was too expensive for her to come out first class with all her entourage. So Colin was able to persuade her to come third class, or tourist class. And so of course she would book tourist class. And of course Lord, whatever his name is, of VA, said, we can't possibly put the prince. For God's sake, move him up to first class. We'll have a riot on our hands. So always she paid third class and she flew first class.
There are privileges to being a royal princess, but there are also responsibilities. Margaret is patron of various organisations, among them the Royal Ballet and the Girl Guides. Although the number of her engagements has been lower than others in her family, Margaret is preparing to take up duties dropped by the younger, disgraced princesses.
I think she still works as many engagements as she's had for a long time. But she does find time to go on holidays, and in the summer she goes to sometimes goes to Turkey and to Italy and then also up to Scotland. And of course, in the sort of February months, I mean, she has a little spell in Mustique, which I know she loves.
Margaret still visits Mustique, but no longer with her boyfriend Roddy Llewellyn. It was on the island she discovered the romance was at an end.
He went all the way to Mustique before he told her, took her aside while they were having dinner, and said, by the way, I'm getting married. That was the first she knew about it. She didn't even know he was having a relationship with somebody else. and he came out, of course, he'd been with another woman for nearly a year.
Like Roddy Llewellyn, the other men in Margaret's life went on to find happiness elsewhere. Peter Townsend married a Belgian girl, Marie-Louise Germain. Tony also married and started a second family. For male company, Margaret now has her walkers, a circle of single men she calls on when she needs to be escorted.
I think she was probably impossible to live with. Because maybe she couldn't let down that reserve even in an intimate situation. You might be sexually intimate with her, physically intimate with her, but somehow I believe that she was never able to relax and just become a woman.
The princess now relies more and more on her family. Her children, Sarah and David, are both happily married, and Sarah has recently made Margaret a grandmother. As the princess withdraws into her own close circle, many of her old friendships are no more.
I think she's lonely in her own house. She's got a very wide family to connect with all the time. Apparently they do non-stop on the telephone, a lot of them. Yaka, yaka, yaka. A lot of her old friends, she really doesn't see anymore for some reason. And she's like that. She does drop. If she makes up her mind she doesn't like you, there's no way you'll ever get back in. And that's sad in a way for her and the friends she dropped.
The curious thing, I shouldn't laugh at it, but I mean, is that this happened with Margaret, and all her fellows have then gone off and married people and had a lovely time and had children and so on, and had very successful marriages, and she's sort of left on the shelf.
Princess Margaret has had a low royal profile for nearly 20 years. At 66, her life provides few headlines. But recently, she stepped back into the limelight with a stinging rebuke to the Duchess of York. In a letter, she told her, "Not once have you hung your head in embarrassment. Clearly you have never considered the damage you are causing us all. How dare you discredit us like this?" But Margaret had herself already tarnished the royal image. When she returned from Moustique in 1976, she was in disgrace because she'd been exposed by the press with a lover 17 years her junior. It was she who was the first member of the House of Windsor to be divorced. She who was the first to be publicly criticised. Margaret has at times wanted to be the most royal of the royals, at others a rebel. Her life has been spent trying to resolve these contradictions. August 1930, the Home Secretary hurried to Glamis Castle in Scotland on urgent state business. It was his duty to attend any royal birth, and the King Emperor George V was expecting his second grandchild. The first had been a girl, Elizabeth, but with no other royal babies on the horizon, there were high hopes that this new baby might be a future king.
It is announced from Glamis Castle that a daughter has been born to their Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of York, the Princess Margaret Rose.
The new baby was only a girl. The Home Secretary took away with him depressing news. There was still no new prince.
With Princess Elizabeth, a toddler of 4, Margaret was born into disappointment. The nation had prayed for a prince. Her sister became heiress presumptive and Princess Margaret next in succession.
Just as the country was downcast by her birth, disappointment has been a theme of Margaret's life. 50 years later, she herself appeared disappointed when she was interviewed on BBC Radio's Desert Island Discs. Roy Plumley invited her to talk about her talents, but she seemed to prefer to dwell on her shortcomings.
You have a gift for mimicry, you're a good musician, you love dancing. In other circumstances, you would have...
No, I don't think so. I wasn't any good to any of them. I mean, you're kind enough to say that I'm a good mimic, but I can't actually mimic people very well. There are other members of my family who are better at that. I'm not a very good musician. I can strum on the piano a little bit for other people to sing to.
I think there are many things that Princess Margaret would have liked to have done in her life that she hasn't been able to do because of her position. And I think, without doubt, she has actually devoted her life to doing her duty in the way that she does for the Queen and for this country.
At the age of 22, Margaret stood by while her sister was crowned and became the most prominent woman in the world. She has had to live her whole life in the shadow of the Queen. I guess I'll be second best to my grave, she once told a friend.
She was more glamorous than the Queen. I think she was probably more intelligent than the Queen, certainly superficially. I mean, she was very amusing. She was talented. She played piano beautifully. She sang. She was always a big success in any sort of social event. So I think she found it difficult being number 2.
I think it must have been very difficult being only sister of the Queen. I think it would have been easier for her if there had been other sisters. Because just being the only one, it was really only playing second fiddle.
There is one place where Margaret can throw off her second sister status, her own desert island, Mustique in the Caribbean. Here she can reign supreme. Rarely photographed, the island is renowned as the hideaway of the rich and famous, who take care to preserve their privacy.
It was her sanctuary. It was her little haven. She liked to be amused. She liked to be busy. It was beaches, it was picnics, luncheons, and then, of course, dinners. And our dinners would extend to little parties. We would try to organize some kind of music for her, which she liked. And she played the piano for us. She joined in, trying to get a little action going.
There's very little to do on Mustique except swim, and she would go swimming a couple of times a day, and people and anybody with her on holiday had to swim with her, like a flotilla following a whale, the sort of dive fish, and the other pilot fish would swim behind it alongside, and conversations would ensue.
She'd ring me up and she would say she couldn't get me lost. I looked at her, drunk, never mind, ma'am. I'll get some lobster and I'll send it up to you this afternoon. And I would. And it would always be received as a gift. Although I'd have been quite pleased if she paid for it.
But even when surrounded by her court, Margaret is not fully at ease.
She always smoked. She was a chain smoker from the moment I first met her. She always had a drink in her hand. She sipped it. She didn't guzzle. She didn't get drunk as such, but she was quite well oiled with it. And I think she needed to, she needed it. She was very quick-witted. She could defend herself, but she still had, in some mysterious way, I can't explain it, a lack of self-confidence.
Early on in her life, it must have been clear to Margaret that she could never be her sister's equal.
Do you remember the fun walking along the curbs and no balustrades? Princess Elizabeth helps her small sister before running across to the other bank, and then she reaches the top first. A few years makes a lot of difference at that age.
Margaret has always been one step behind her older sister. When their uncle abdicated in 1936, Elizabeth, overnight, became the heir apparent. While she was groomed to be queen, Margaret was encouraged to play the frivolous younger sister.
Elizabeth always came across as very steady, very stable, not terrifically curious about the world, very reliable, somebody who, in some way, was rather dull even, perhaps slightly priggish. Whereas Princess Margaret was much more sort of fairy and imaginative and more musical, more artistic, lived more in a kind of fantasy world. So there was that kind of difference of emphasis, which partly, of course, reflected what was expected of them.
Apart from doing good works and being a sort of shadow of, I don't know what aspirations they could possibly find. I don't think it occurred to them in those days that, if you were a member of the royal family, particularly if you were the sister of the Queen, you just were, you just lived a nice life.
The two princesses were isolated in Buckingham Palace. They didn't go to school, and other children rarely came to play. Margaret, 4 years younger, had only Elizabeth to compare herself with. Their governess gave them a rudimentary education, but Elizabeth singled out for extra lessons in history.
And step out and make their bets on the grass there. Picture this. Have you ever seen them alone together before? The Queen and Princess Margaret look on.
I think they were very proud of Elizabeth and very ambitious for her and longing for her to be a good heir to the throne. And so Margaret got rather overlooked. I think Margaret was left very much to, muck up the stables, have a good time, play, catch what you can with the young officers, sort of generally.